On Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the president has absolute immunity when it comes to official acts performed while in office. Now, that decision ended up wiping out a good deal of the case that special counsel Jack Smith was using to go after Trump in the election interference case, as well as the Mar-a-Lago documents case. So now the 6-3 decision, of course, came down along party lines with dissent from the Democratic appointed justices Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Sotomayor's dissent was actually incredibly forceful, arguing the ruling basically gave presidents way too much power, carte blanche, to do all sorts of crimes. Now, that said, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who agreed with the majority, had some nuance in her opinion, okay? A little bit more than the other justices. In fact, journalist Jonathan Allen pointed that out on Twitter/X. First, he says, the SCOTUS opinion is a near total victory for Trump, legally, and a total win in terms of delaying/possibly vitiating prosecution. So, I mean, that right there is disastrous enough, right? He says the president enjoys presumptive immunity for any acts inside and extending to the outer perimeter of his official duties, also a big win for presidential power. In another post, though, he noted that Barrett's partial concurrence was worth reading, and so I'm going to share that. So he basically says that she takes issue specifically with the idea that protected conduct can't be introduced as evidence at trial of a president. And he's not the only one that pointed this out. In a separate article published by Newsweek on July 1st, reporter Catherine Fung said of Barrett, quote, while she agreed with the court's opinion at large, she disagreed with one part of the ruling that held the Constitution prevents protected conduct from being introduced as evidence in a criminal prosecution against a former president, siding with the bench's 3 liberals instead. The Constitution does not require blinding juries to the circumstances surrounding conduct for which presidents can be held liable. To make sense of charges alleging a quid pro quo, the jury must be allowed to hear about both the quid and the quo, even if the quo, standing alone, could not be a basis for the president's criminal liability. So this goes back to an example that Sotomayor had talked about, okay? If the president takes a bribe in exchange, for example, a pardon, okay? So the president has pardon authority, okay? That is one of his core powers. So now if the president pardons somebody and later journalists or investigators, whatever, discover that around the same time a person related to the person that was pardoning or that was being pardoned, I should say, or wherever, right? Somebody close to them acting on their behalf, whatever. Someone connected to this pardon deposited a rather large sum of money into the account of the president. Well, that would be interesting. Now, according to the ruling, though, prosecutors would not be able to use any of the conduct, right, determined to be official acts as evidence at trial. In this case, that would be the pardon. So now that would destroy the case of bribery against the president because they couldn't use the act of granting a pardon to say that the president intended to personally profit off one of his core abilities, the ability to give a pardon, which is very valuable, by the way. And we couldn't go after a president for doing that, from personally profiting off those abilities, the ability to give pardons, even if we could see the money change hands. I mean, what's to prevent, right? Someone who wants a pardon, having someone come up to the president with a very large comical sack of money, like burlap sack with a big old dollar sign pointed out and say, I want a pardon, or so-and-so wants a pardon. Here you go. I just happen to give you this bag of cash. Apparently, you can't go after him for it. So now it's a ridiculous standard. It means the president could, theoretically, do massive favors for his friends and engage in personal corruption. But because it's his core powers, the court allowed them to do that. He can't be prosecuted for it. So Amy Coney Barrett's like, no, I disagree with that. That seems pretty ridiculous. And she would be correct. Now, there's another part where she actually made a decent point as well. She also said it is difficult to see pressuring state legislators, namely the Arizona House Speaker, as an official act. So she writes, sorting private from official conduct sometimes will be difficult, but not always. Take the president's alleged attempt to organize alternate slates of electors. These are fake electors, right? She said, in my view, that conduct is private and therefore not entitled to protection. In short, a president has no legal authority and thus no official capacity to influence how states appoint their electors. I see no plausible argument for barring prosecution of that alleged conduct. So again, she would be right on both counts, okay? And so, you know, not being able to use the conduct, you know, if it's an official act in a case against the president, if there is alleged corruption, it seems absolutely ridiculous. You can't do that. Use that. And then, of course, yes, the fake electors. That is private. That is not one of your core duties as a president to put pressure on electors, okay, or to, you know, have fake electors so that you could retain power in an election. It seems absolutely ridiculous. She's right. And yet, she still voted on the majority of opinion to give the president those powers, okay? And so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if she disagreed. She gave the president near blanket total immunity for these official acts. And look, and look, well, non-official acts at least. Well, how she even admits that that's very difficult to differentiate between official and non-official acts. So, in essence, it's going to be extremely hard to go after, to prosecute a former president, even though there is crimes that have been done. So now all of this, of course, definitely benefits Donald Trump, but also would benefit any president down the line now. It's not just an expansion of his power, it's an expansion of presidential power, period. And that's not a good thing. Now, that said, this minor nuance was still enough to enrage MAGA chuds. I'm not kidding. One Trump supporter, Sharon Cooper, tweeted, "What is going on with Amy Coney Barrett? Who is she? She's the Supreme Court justice with a misguided view of our justice system." Oh, is that it? Is that it? Wait, she agreed with you. She gave Trump his immunity. What are you talking about? Hans Monkey posted, "Of course, Amy Coney Barrett had to disagree with something. She thinks that it should be allowable for a jury to be presented with official presidential acts as evidence of crimes having been committed." Yes, well, if those acts are part of a crime, are a part of a quid pro quo, then yes, they should be admitted as evidence. Like, the president was selling pardons and personally benefiting from that. Yeah, that seems like a kind of a problem. Another person says, this is Honeywell and Todd. They just attacked Barrett as quote unquote Justice Karen. And then finally, Jenny Romero writes, ACB is horrible, and whoever recommended her should never be taken seriously, ever again. Well, hey, look, and that I'm in agreement, because you know who recommended Amy Coney Barrett? That would be the Heritage Foundation, specifically Heritage scholars John Malcolm and Zach Smith. They recommended her to the Supreme Court, and the foundation recommended her to Trump for the Supreme Court, I should say, and the foundation absolutely went to bat for her and cheered when she was put on the court. So I would love for no one to listen to the Heritage Foundation and their, picks ever again. They're the ones that are pushing the massively dystopian Project 2025, which has to be stopped at all costs. Now, unfortunately, her minor disagreements literally mean nothing at this point because, again, remember, the big part about Project 2025 that is so disastrous is this huge expansion of presidential power. The Supreme Court knows this, okay? Heritage Foundation, all right? That's what we're talking about. And their picks to get on the court. Oh, look, President now has pretty much blanket immunity. Oh, and then we're also going to expand presidential powers massively in Project 2025. Everything seems set up for Donald Trump to become an incredibly powerful autocrat in his second term. So again, her disagreements mean absolutely nothing, and yet you got MAGA chuds that are still complaining for some reason. Apparently, that's just what they do. They just love being victims, when in reality, they just got a massive win, and they don't even know it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.